a guy will vent about his frustrations, about what's going on in his life, and his friend just basically tells him, man up, here's a beer, basically. And that's not enough. Sometimes that's not enough. It really is.
It's enough for me tonight.
You know what I'm trying to say, though, is that there's no one size fits all, but I'm saying that I do agree that men need to be heard. Men need to be listened to. I do agree with that. I'm not saying that, I'm saying that there's just, for too long, men have been told that they just need to take it.
I think that's good. I think they should take it. I think you should say, man up, stop being a little bitch. I mean, I do that as a father.
Why they each other, or kill themselves, or unalive themselves.
No, they don't mostly do that, though.
I'm just saying that you can't say, like, don't talk to anybody, keep it, internalize it, keep it within yourself.
How could you make the link, though, of teaching men to essentially overcome their emotions, overcome their perceived tribulations by being stronger and stronger, and then you're trying to make a link to, if you teach men to overcome things, that results in them deleting themselves. I don't understand how you're making this jump.
Well, let's just say men and women. Women are a lot more social. Women talk to each other a lot more. Men are more independent. They don't talk to each other, yet you don't see women killing themselves, unaliving themselves.
They're not as good at it.
Unaliving themselves left and right.
Men are better at it.
What?
It's like a force
They
thing.
succeed. They can follow through with it. Women fail at it. They attempt it, but they fail more than men. Why is that? In the attempts, in the comparative analysis of attempts, why is the man so successful at it? Like, the women try, but they
Also,
don't do
does
it.
therapy work? Like, in general?
Therapy?
Yes.
Like,
Therapy
in
absolutely
general,
works.
does therapy work?
I mean,
Robustly, but I will give you a caveat. Therapy robustly works, by and large. There's a couple of caveats. Therapy is extremely ineffective with incels. Extremely. Incels actually seek therapy more than the general population, but the efficacy rate for them is about 10%.
I'm not even talking about incels. I'm just speaking in general. Like,
I'm
I don't
telling
think,
you, at
like,
data level,
there's certain things
unquestionably
like
it works.
grief counseling, or like if you're specifically trying to address maybe something specific. I guess I could see the application of therapy, but a man just going to see another man or a woman and just, here's my problems.
Well, that's not
therapy
exactly what
doesn't
therapy
necessarily
is.
mean you have a problem.
Wait, hold on, just to be clear, talk therapy is like the most popular form of therapy that there is.
But
Brian,
you're describing a talk therapy that isn't even like, most men, for example, tend to prefer CBT versus like
CBT has some merit to it, but like, just talk therapy.
Talk therapy is CBT. CBT is the most common form of therapy, unquestionably. There's a new fourth wave of therapy that is getting a little bit more popular, that's a little bit more emotion focused exclusively. Women tend to like that more, but CBT is very practical.
Who here is currently in therapy?
Amazing.
Okay.
Who here's ever
question-
professionally offered
But
therapy?
it depends on the
So,
therapist, I
but
would say.
And how many therapists have you had?
Like 3.
How many therapists have you had? 2. If it's not too much to share, what issues are you guys specifically working through in therapy?
So the thing about therapy is, a lot of people think there's a stigma, like, oh, he or she is in therapy, and there's that stigma that comes with it. But therapy doesn't just because you do therapy doesn't necessarily mean that there's something
So you're
wrong
just giving
with you.
somebody like $200 an hour.
It's not $200.
Yeah, but he asked you.
Can you answer my question though? What specifically are you working on in therapy?
Sometimes I talk about things in my life that made me upset, for example.
Why can't you talk to a
Okay.
pillow?
Here, and
Because
what's your?
I'd
what,
rather
are
talk-
you specific? Because I know people are.
Yeah.
Are you specifically working through something in
Yeah,
particular?
yeah, childhood trauma.
Okay, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I guess the question is though, sometimes you go this therapy stuff. Has it helped you talking about it?
Honestly, it has to be the right therapist. I currently have one that I stopped seeing because I agree with you. It's just like talking to a wall, and she was like, yeah.
And first off, I'm very sorry to hear that you went through traumatic things when you were a child. I think a lot of people go through that. Have you found that, and this is my experience sometimes with talking about anything that is troubling, I find that talking about it just makes me more upset. It doesn't help at all. It sort of, what's the word for it? It just sort of recycles the feelings, and sometimes I just, if it's something like temporary that I'm upset about, talking about it and focusing on it just makes me more upset about said thing. And if I'm given a couple days to just not talk about it, I tend to just move on past the thing that was troubling, and I'm good. Now, I can understand perhaps with something that's like a bit more deep-seated and like, you know, you're not going to get over, you know, I'm talking about more of a minor thing, but even things that in the moment are troubling to me. If I just wait a week, yeah, I'm over it.
So when I'm in therapy, we practice something where with trauma, they want you to be, to feel what you felt when you had that trauma, to overcome the idea of like, I don't want to think about it,
Yeah.
you know, hush, like it's under the rug, because you're not really working through it if you're just not talking about it and you're just putting it under the rug or hiding it. Talking through it and having that emotional reaction is actually helping you as a person. It helped me. It has to be the right therapist. Like, again, if the therapist is just nodding her head or his or her head, just saying yes, 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 and not actually asking questions, engaging, trying to understand my perspective, or even interjecting and saying, hey, like, what you just said is not correct, like that's cognitive behavioral therapy, then there's no, it's not.
Can I ask you a more of like an empirical question? How do you measure whether or not you've sort of worked your way through something? Let's say like, here's a problem. In between these two things is therapy, and here's you've made your way through. What's the metric for you've made your way through the problem?
There's never I made a way through my problem. I will always live with that. It's unfortunate, but it's the way I am able to react to it, handle it, and talk about it.
Do you want to know the empirical metrics that we use in the science
Sure.
to evaluate? So there's a couple of metrics that are going to be used. One of the most important ones is days off work. So one of the most important metrics for the efficacy of therapy is to see how often that person has to take off work for mental health related issues. So this is one of the most robust evidences for support for therapy, is that people who have gone through therapy miss work less often. Another really good measure of therapy efficacy would be things like relationship flourishing. So if they prior to therapy struggled in relationships, can't maintain them very well, and post-therapy have relationship flourishing, that's oftentimes used, and you see this robustly. Like when I'm saying robustly, I mean millions, maybe billions of data points, right? So this is an extremely established phenomenon that by and large therapy works. There are bad therapists, and there is a pathologizing of normal living that I would totally grant, where people are like, I'm really sad, I need to go to therapy. I'm like, you could probably just talk to a friend. Like, you probably don't need to. But there are things like trauma, for example, that have very neurobiological underlyings, that have very, very well-researched protocols for addressing these things. And the thing that she's describing, where essentially you're calling the emotion and the memory forward and reconsolidating it, is based on hippocampal data. We know that when you pull a memory forward and you reform it, every time you re-experience that memory, you're recoding it with like emotional colors. And so the goal of like PTSD therapy would be reduction of nightmares, reduction of days off, and reduction of flashbacks. And
panic
it doesn't
attacks.
always work. There are some people that it is not effective on, and there are other ways. But for example, prolonged exposure is what it sounds like you're talking about, is extremely effective on average by and large. However, there is a caveat here, again, which is that overall, we said that therapy is slightly less effective for men, and I would argue that's because we approach therapy almost exclusively from a more feminine approach, and there can be therapies, and there are therapies that focus on more mechanical movement. For example, teaching men to externalize, having therapy that's focused outdoors and with movement, talking about like project-related processing. These things do exist and are beginning to emerge because I think men have been underserved by therapy.
Well, it's like like you said. You said that you'd way rather just not talk about it, wait out a week. I personally want to talk about it.
Well,
I can't let it sit within.
You know, there's some variance here. I think you made some good points, and I think that when I'm talking about therapy, I'm not talking about it so much from like trauma stuff, more so like vaguely sad. Like I'm vaguely unhappy. There's not like a specific traumatic experience I'm trying to work through. It's more so just like I'm vaguely upset or sad about something, or I just like, or perhaps the problem's been solved, but I'm just going to be perpetually in therapy.
Yeah.
That's kind of confusing to me too.
Mild
But
to moderate depression and anxiety, by and large, particularly when it's state, which means like you're feeling sad, it's not like a diagnosis, can be solved by community. If you just immerse that person into a community that supports them, most of these things go away, because most people are sad because they're lonely.
sure. Final thing on the therapy thing, just in response to you, you said you want to talk about things and stuff. Sorry, that was. You want to talk about things?
Yeah, like I got a therapist after that year and a half
Yeah.
breakup because I just couldn't put it on my friends to listen to me 24/7.
Sure.
Like, because I'd be so anxious, so depressed. Like,
But-
it was.
Yeah, but do you
too
feel
much.
like if I can make it from a relationship realm, I don't feel the need to, like, for example, if I'm dating a girl and she does something that's annoying or something, I don't feel the need to, like, in every instance, if somebody's like said something that's like whatever, kind of annoying, or I don't feel the need to constantly litigate every single minor thing. I think part of being in a relationship is giving the other person grace and like letting like minor things.
Unless they
slide.
put the toilet paper the wrong way,
Oh yeah, of course. Then you've got to.
then it's over.
But I think that like a component of relationships is giving the other person grace to like maybe, especially this is especially the case for women. I think like if we say something that offends you, maybe let a couple things slide. I don't know. I've had girls who are like every fucking thing.
I don't think I was
Granted, I
really
did-
necessarily
Go.
saying. I wasn't saying that.
Oh, you
I
weren't
was
talking
just
about
saying
that.
like.
Okay.
I have a bad day. I had a bad day at work or something really shitty happened. Like, I'd rather just tell somebody about it, talk about it for a second, and I'm more likely to get over it. My brain works on just festering on it.